There's been a lot of talk about Caitlin Clark being an amazing shooter and just someone we're watching. Have you spoken to her? Do you know her? What do you think?
I mean, I've been watching from afar and understanding just how much of a power she is out there on the court. The cool part is the way that she plays and her range and the level of difficulty on her shots is obviously a very close comparison to the way that I play.
I was going to say, Caitlin Clark's been compared to you.
Yeah.
The crowd saw it. The cameras captured it. The internet replayed it thousands of times within hours. During what seemed like a normal live TV appearance, Stephen Curry unexpectedly inserted himself into Caitlin Clark's moment, and suddenly everyone was asking the same question. Was it spontaneous, planned, or something neither side expected? The answers may be far different than fans originally assumed. So, what exactly happened and what detail are most people overlooking?
It's funny because I was listening to your last segment where you were talking about Steph Curry and you said he's the greatest shooter God ever created. On Saturday, Caitlin Clark certainly looked like that for the WNBA.
But that ain't what I want to talk about. What I want to talk about, Caitlin Clark. She came back off injury, man. She was cooking. Like, I ain't seen nobody on that on 5 from 3. And the distance she was shooting that 3, you gotta respect her like Steph Curry, man.
The reaction was instant, but the real story had been building for months. When Stephen Curry reached for Caitlin Clark's microphone during a highly publicized basketball appearance, fans immediately flooded social media with theories, reactions, and endless replays of the moment.
The only accurate way to describe watching Caitlin Clark. She is 2016 Steph Curry. It's nonstop, off the dribble, logo threes every single game. There is not a single NBA player not named Steph Curry who does what Caitlin Clark does on a nightly basis. She is different.
Caitlin Clark and Steph Curry both of them had hell of years this year, with Curry in the Olympics and Caitlin Clark breaking records in the NCAA, and her WNBA career starting off really hot. Now, they both had epic moments in their careers this year.
To many viewers, it looked like a simple interaction between two basketball stars. However, the reason the clip exploded across the sports world had very little to do with a microphone and everything to do with what Caitlin Clark has become.
Steph Curry, Caitlin Clark, my 2 favorite basketball players ever. Give us what we want. We need the 3-point shooting contest with both of the best logo shooters the game has ever seen, man. Steph, I know Clark said she want to do it in the WNBA this All-Star game. Come over here, Steph. This would break the internet, everybody. Can you imagine the intensity in the arena with these two lighting up?
At this point, Caitlin Clark is no longer just a rookie guard trying to establish herself in the WNBA. She has become the center of one of the biggest conversations in professional sports. Every game she plays becomes a headline. Every foul committed against her becomes a debate. Every record she breaks generates another round of discussion. And every public appearance attracts the attention of millions of fans who want to know what happens next.
It almost robs her of like the rest of her game because she's such a good floor, she has her overall, floor game. She's racking up, close to triple doubles every night. And like her shooting ability is, it's her superpower, but the rest of her game is as polished as that. And so it's must-see TV. And I love what it is done for, women's basketball in terms of when she shows up, the seats are filled and there's a different energy.
That is exactly why the moment involving Stephen Curry generated such a massive response. It was not simply a meeting between two talented basketball players. It was a symbolic moment involving arguably the most influential shooter in basketball history and the player many believe is changing the trajectory of women's basketball before our eyes. The fascinating part is that this story did not begin with Stephen Curry. In reality, it began months earlier when basketball fans started noticing a growing pattern surrounding Caitlin Clark's introduction to the professional game. From the moment she entered the WNBA, Clark arrived carrying expectations that few athletes in sports history have ever experienced. She entered the league after one of the most celebrated college careers basketball has ever seen. Most rookies enter professional sports hoping to earn recognition. Caitlin Clark entered professional sports already carrying an audience that many established stars spend entire careers trying to build. That level of attention created opportunities unlike anything the WNBA had experienced before, but it also created challenges that few rookie athletes have ever faced. Every opposing arena suddenly had a reason to sell tickets months in advance because fans wanted to see Caitlin Clark play.
Respect her game. The game has switched so much to where you don't even play in paint. In the paint, kids don't shoot mid-ranges no more. Everything is basically from the three-point line. You see kids warming up now. They shooting everything from the three-point line. Everything is long range. And you better learn how to shoot that three, man, if you're going to play in any college D1. If you plan on playing in any kind of NBA or anything, you better get your shot together because that inside game, it ain't really what it is. And you sell tickets on people who can shoot that three.
Every television network suddenly had a reason to promote women's basketball games with a level of intensity that had rarely existed before. Every sports debate show suddenly had a reason to dedicate airtime to the WNBA, and every basketball analyst suddenly had a reason to discuss a league that had often struggled to command consistent national attention. While those developments represented extraordinary growth for women's basketball, they also placed an enormous target on Clark's back from the moment she stepped onto a professional court. Opposing players wanted to test her and see whether the college superstar could handle the speed and physicality of the professional game. Fans wanted to judge every performance, celebrate every success, and scrutinize every mistake. As the season unfolded, many supporters began expressing frustration regarding what they viewed as excessive physical play directed toward Clark, whether those concerns were entirely justified or partially influenced by the emotional investment of her fanbase. One reality became impossible to ignore. The conversation surrounding Caitlin Clark was growing louder with every passing week, and it was expanding far beyond the traditional audience of women's basketball.
First time, and, I grew up watching Steph. Like, to me, he's one of the greatest basketball players of all time. But I was also a kid that grew up getting to watch him, and I think he's really changed the way basketball's being played. Maybe at times, me and him both, kids shouldn't always just go and chuck a bunch of threes, but that's what makes the game so exciting. And what he's been able to do throughout his career, he's really changed basketball. And, everybody that's ever met him knows how good of a person he is too. So it's cool to be here. He's somebody I certainly idolize.
That was when something particularly interesting began to happen. NBA stars started speaking publicly about Caitlin Clark. Historically, professional athletes tend to remain focused on their own leagues and careers. Basketball players certainly respect athletes across every level of the sport, but public endorsements from superstar NBA players are relatively uncommon. Most athletes understand that their words carry weight, and many choose to avoid stepping into controversial discussions, especially when those conversations involve another league. Remaining neutral is often the safest option, yet one by one, some of the most recognizable names in basketball began discussing Caitlin Clark, and the significance of those comments extended far beyond simple compliments or casual observations. When Pascal Siakam was asked about popularity, fan engagement, and the growth of basketball audiences, he brought up Caitlin Clark without hesitation. What made Siakam's comments especially noteworthy was that he was not discussing future possibilities or hypothetical achievements. He was not talking about what Clark might become one day if everything worked out perfectly. Instead, he was acknowledging the reality of what she had already become in the present moment.
Steph, give us what we want, please. This would go down in absolute history, man. One of the greatest moments the basketball culture has ever seen. We gotta get it. Steph, get on the phone. Clark, get on the phone. Talk to each other. We need this shit to go down, man. We need the threes flying for y'all, man. We should even push it further back, man, and get it as a logo three.
That reality was simple but powerful. Caitlin Clark had become one of the most recognizable names in basketball. That observation reflected something many people were still trying to process. Clark was no longer operating exclusively within the boundaries of the WNBA. She had become part of the broader basketball conversation, sharing space with athletes whose influence extended across the entire sport. That distinction matters because there have been countless great players throughout basketball history who achieved